Coming up right now, the newest episode from Carr, Gwyn, and Ode on Three Pagans and a Cat. This is Three Pagans and a Cat interview series with Witchdoctor Utu, and I am Carr.
You may call me Ode.
Merry meet, my name is Gwyn.
And I'm Utu.
There we go. First, I think we want just kind of a brief introduction. Who you are, what you do.
In case our listeners have not heard of you.
Yeah.
Well, I live in St. Catharines, Ontario, in Canada. I'm the founder of the Dragon Ritual Drummers. It's a fairly well-known pagan drum troupe. We're centered out of Niagara Falls. Been a member of the New Orleans Voodoo Spiritual Temple since around about the year 2000. I'm also initiated in Ifa, a tradition, a particular line that comes out of Nigeria. So for the last 20 years or so, I've been very active in the Canadian and pagan communities. So I travel on both parts of the continent and present and kind of share, whether it's with the Dragon Ritual Drummers, where we're from, what we're all about, or myself, which is most of them about Conjure of the Underground Railroad, which has been my passion for the last well over 15 years of putting that together. So that's it's me in a nutshell, kind of just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The pagan community and my foot in the Conjure world as well. So.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
We've all read the book.
Harriet, Mama Moses Tubman, and the Spirits of the Underground Railroad.
Yeah, and we enjoyed it tremendously. We actually kind of went through it last night as again to refocus,
so we have it fresh
in our minds.
The whole book again.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I really like about it is that you give a lot of history. There are things about Harriet Tubman in this book that I never got in history, growing up. And in Michigan, because we are close to Canada, and we did have station here, so we heard a lot about the Underground Railroad in elementary school. As Ode would say, we heard about the gourd, but we had no idea what it was for.
Yeah, it was just like, she used to carry a gourd around. Who knows why?
Who knows why? So we knew nothing about her occult and root work that she did. And it really was presented to me as a Christian framework, that she was a Christian. So I found this absolutely fascinating. But then in addition, it's also a grimoire. And you show us how to work with Harriet. So can you tell us more about how you got into that?
Well, where I live, and the neighborhood I live in, is where Harriet Tubman brought her track to its end, like literally to its end. So there's a little block where I live where there's a church that's still maintained by freedom-seeking descendants. And they're all really amazing people. I've known them for almost 20 years. So that's, a few of them didn't want to be named in the book. So their last names were put in there because, they are Christians. And so, or their family members are not, but, it's just to protect.
Sure.
There's several of these renowned families that are all friends of mine. And so when they knew and started to find out that I was involved in voodoo and conjure, a few of them were like, oh, right on. And they knew what I was sort of chasing around. So what's interesting is those descendants do believe that it's worth sharing the truth, even if they do not adhere to root work or conjure. If their descendants, and in particular Harriet Tubman, did utilize it, then truth is truth.
Right.
And so one of them is a friend of mine who's a historian, actually, of that church. And so she's been a very good friend for many years. May not agree with everything that I do, but we're good friends, and she's all about that and knows that truth is truth. And so that's the thing, right? It's like here in Michigan, renowned Underground Railroad legacy. And history doesn't ever want to taint the Underground Railroad with voodoo and root work.
Right.
Because when you think about it, it's not even mainstream amongst,
in
our
the
world,
community.
right?
Yeah.
Imagine like this historical legacy is going to be like, oh, by the way, it was filled with conjurers and root workers, and some of our most famous people were, carrying mojos and invoking spirits. They don't want that to be known. So that's where the history in this book is a bit, sort of just exposing that was a big part of it. So this is what these people used. They were Christian. They utilized everything they could take.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so, trying to dig through some of the stories of what, people were really doing, it's pretty interesting because there was a lot of magic and a lot of occult, and especially on the white supporters of the Underground Railroad, there were a lot of occultists.
Right.
Mesmerists, spiritualists.
Exactly. I was going to say there was a spiritualist in there, at least one, that I remember. Remember reading.
Well, I think the whole spiritualist movement was very involved in the Underground Railroad.
Right.
Yeah.
The spiritualism was born out of cross-pollination with freedom seekers that were staying in Quaker barns. So the Quakers were the ones that's where spiritualism came from. There was a radical sect of them that were working with the afterlife, and by the time they were intermingling and sharing with freedom seekers, just that sort of fusion came together, working with spirit, sitting on a table, and so like even spiritualism in and of itself was born on the Underground Railroad, and that's something no one's ever really paid attention to. Everyone in Conjure is always trying to recreate the South.
Right.
The romantic Southern.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
really the mysticism and the sort of the last legs of this, right up here where we live.
Yeah.
So we live on this current of a gateway to freedom. So all the magic of the North, I think it doesn't get enough recognition, the occult and magic of where we live on this part of the continent. So it always has to be south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Right.
There's a lot of things that happened up here, between here, Pennsylvania, and New York State.
Yeah, so I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, born and raised. My family is from out further in Virginia, and one of my ancestors discovered the Luray Caverns, which is Luray is very close to this thing called Harper's Ferry. So
Captain John Brown.
Captain John Brown is a big deal to me because we heard about that all the time being raised in that area, is that John Brown was a big frickin' deal.
Took field trips out to Harper's Ferry.
Yeah, we took field trips to Harper's Ferry as part of my education in elementary school to learn about that. So that part of the book to me was like, okay, this is the part I really want to dig into because I know so much about John Brown and so much about Harper's Ferry. You know, we even, in school, we discussed some of the things that happened, like people not showing up and Frederick Douglass telling people, don't go, it's going to be a massacre.
Consequently, it was a massacre.
Right, yeah.
Can you tell us more about Captain John Brown?
The only thing I sort of showed different here was his, for being such a religious zealot that he clearly was, he surrounded himself with a very colorful tapestry of people that practice various religions. And it seems odd that he was very inspired by African slave rebellions, like whether it was the Amistad, that was his hero, Senke, who that was somebody he really admired. He actually admired Nat Turner, who indiscriminately killed everybody that was white, right? So it's odd that, John Brown would take inspiration, but anyone that was utilizing their African traditions or African spirituality to stand up and fight for freedom, he was all about that. And so he obviously was a very, I don't know, like for Americans, it's always interesting to talk about him because some Americans, this guy he's a terrorist. He's responsible for the civil traitor. Others, he was a folk hero, whose hands are bloodier, the slaver or the one who fights for equality. So he fits in that weird place.
I think you said Harriet considered him a martyr for the cause.
Absolutely. And he gave her so where the church, where the area where I live, that's where he gave her that title. So it was a very interesting spiritual proclamation with many witnesses to that. And he called her General Tubman and said, "You're the general of this army." And she loved that title. And she always talked about it in biographies till her final days, that was a big deal for her. So he had heard about her, thought she was again, it's interesting. They each had their own little weird way of conjure Christian mysticism, but they both believed that God had ordained that they would fight together.
Right.
And had brought them together.
And it's interesting, to look at that. And when you're working with spirits that have those legacies, it's very strange, especially if you're a pagan. But that's what I find fascinating about American occult, is that there's a lot of intermingling.
Yeah, there's a lot of syncretism.
Yeah.
What's it like to, as a pagan, work with these very devoutly Christian spirits?
It was very hard for me when I first began to be immersed in voodoo, particularly priestessry. I thought it was something totally different when I was younger and a drummer, and that's how I came into her temple. And when I started to see how much Christianity was involved, even if it's just a synchronization of it, I was very uncomfortable. And then when I started to accept some of it, because I just spent years and years sort of like just trying to get rid of all elements of Catholicism and Christianity that was in my life.
Were you raised as a Christian or in
I was born in Scotland, so
Anglican.
We come with one half is Catholic, one half is Protestant. We have songs where I live, where I was born in Glasgow, about those types of families where one was on either side. So religious strife and religiosity is unfortunately a really big part of West Scotland, not in a very good way. So, but and so just the Christian, after being so many years as a pagan, deconstructing Christianity to eventually start to accept working even with the Bible. That was the last thing I could understand, when I said, you have to use this to understand what these people were doing, and this is a big part of hoodoo and conjure. And I was like, oh, this is brutal. Then luckily after many years, with people that showed me that there's just a lot of spell work in here, and it was always used by freedom seekers as a code. The book had codes of things they could do because there was no other grimoire. The Bible to them, and hoodoo and conjure in African American culture, for those conjurers, the Bible was a grimoire that they could choose. So
I was sitting with Kenya last night, and she started pulling out Bibles out of her purse, and I was like, what? And she goes, no, it's for Psalms work. That's all it's for. And I was like,
it was little
okay, because it was a little, I was like, this is a little weird.
I almost grabbed one Psalm. I'm very interested in root work and conjure. It's not something that I was ever really obviously exposed to as a Christian, and I'm
And it's not something you were trained in.
No, it's not something I was trained in. But my grandfather, he was of German descent, but like he planted by the, the phases of the moon, and he taught me how to water witch. And so even though he was Baptist, I feel like I'm kind of drawn toward that idea of conjure and root work because I'm a green witch, so I work with herbs and things like that. So it just feels natural to me.
It's very ancestral. So, case in point for his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone born in North America, or even if you're born in Europe, our families, at least grandparents' generation, were religious. They had no choice. They didn't have a free society like we have.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they had pursuits of magic and seasons and moon cycles, and folk magic has always been buried. And so when we feel drawn to it, sometimes I think it's to appease one of our ancestors, that kind of follows us around in our spiritual court of our ancestors, and some of them had a leaning towards the book. And because back then that was social for them too. So a lot of people went to church on Sundays. Well, that was the only time you weren't working on the farm. You got to see somebody, and it's not talking about.
It was
where you would hook up.
Yeah,
you would get some eyes and be like, "Do you want to meet outside afterwards? Walk through the cemetery?" Yeah.
It was just part of the social contract.
That's right.
This was how you established that you were like a law-abiding.
That's right.
Agreeable member of society
and part of the community.
Part of the community was to engage in religious dialogue with each other. That was just part of life. We, in the modern day, have sort of separated religion from community in a way that's very unnatural to a lot of our ancestors.
Yes, I would think so.
Mm-hmm. Getting back to your book and getting back to Captain John Brown, I think a lot of our younger listeners, because we have a lot of young pagans who listen to us, I don't think they would have known that he was a white man.
Right.
And he was an abolitionist. There were a lot of white people working with black people, and
it was a very multicultural
kind of endeavor for freedom.
Yep.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so there was a great deal of white people involved in it. Had I have put together a book that focused mostly on just the white people on the Underground Railroad, I would have got attacked as being somebody who was only focusing. So when I went specifically to show, and the idea was neo-pagan world that we all exist in, it's something that people are interested in, root work and conjure. And the Caribbean traditions are foreign even to some African Americans. So for example, where I live in Canada, the African Canadian community that are descendants, this is one of the things that always I like to share with people sometimes when I'm around folks that are part of the traditions I'm in, is that they're like, well, don't they want to get initiated in the Haitian Vodou or Santeria? It's like, well, no, they don't have any affinity towards anything to do with the Caribbean culture. They're Canadians, removed from America, and they're North Americans. So for me, the amount of people that seem to want to get involved in hoodoo, which is great, but they just sometimes forget, or some other authors haven't really painted, where it's from. And once you understand where it's from, then most people, if you have respect for it, you can, indulge in it to a degree, as long as you have some respect. So I just thought that Underground Railroad was a good paradigm that, it does encompass white people and black people working together a really long time ago. It's barely happening now. So, why not that be and brought two countries together? So why not be an interesting paradigm for North American spirituality? Just another one to throw into the fire of many different traditions that focus on our uniquely American paradigm. And I think it's amazing because I think America in particular doesn't get enough of its credibility for the sort of the magic that was born in this continent. It seems everybody gravitates to European witchcraft. And that's awesome. Or they focus on the traditions from the Caribbean, or Africa. Oh, that's more exotic. Or
Native American.
Yeah, for sure. Native American all the way. It's the continent. It's the pulse of this continent. But as far as a cult goes and magic, American traditions don't get enough, and so that's what I thought would be interesting to sort of focus on. And it wasn't a design. It wasn't anything I ever chose to do. It's where I lived. And ultimately, I would never have even focused on Underground Railroad Conjure if it wasn't for the people of the Voodoo Spiritual Temple in New Orleans, because I was like, I want to learn more, and what do I do while I'm up here in Canada? And it was Mary who said, you should focus on the voodoo where you live. And I was like, I live in Niagara Falls.
What voodoo?
Harriet Tubman. And I went, oh, okay. And then when a couple came to stay with me for a while, they brought me over to the church, and they're like, yeah, see this right here? I'm like, this is why there's voodoo here. You'll be able to find it. And I'd known that church was there. I lived right around the corner from it. And, kind of like that one day, I was like, oh. And I was like, really? And that's the first time you would meet. I knew everything. As a pagan or a Buddha, that I had no idea that this church or this connection would run that. And it took years to really establish that connection. But the more I did, it would just be more and more. I lived around the corner. So whenever I start to access these spiritual forces that live, they're buried in a couple parking lots. They have no markers.
Huh.
And so that force would just come right into the house, like right up. There's a couple of backyards that have bodies buried as well. So it was really tangible. And once you start to open this world up, it just became something that was overwhelming. And at that point I knew, well, I guess there's a tradition that needs to be created here or help be created.
Do you think that this is something that it would be more specifically for people who are drawn to conjure or interested in conjure? Or is this for anybody who would like to work with
and connect with the underground realm?
I think a bit of both. And there's going to be a part 2 of that. So that's why this had to be more introductory. Originally, what I wanted to do is have a big kind of formidable. Good luck trying to take this one, people. You know, you're going to do this. So.
And Weiser said, whoa, the publishers.
Ultimately, it's about binding, and that comes down to how much binding or they break apart. So I was like, okay, I'll do it part 2. So the next one will definitely have elements of, because it's very creative. I created a lot of it. There are some things that are historical in there. Some of it is stuff that my friends and I and colleagues have literally created out of like inspiration from the spirit, various workings, you know. So, but there's no orthodox or dogma way to work with the spirit. So one of the things I didn't put in this book, though, was like a way that for like almost like what Wiccans would recognize as circle to cast by using these forces. So there's no way you can't access it. And to me, if people want to focus on an inspirational place, and if they want to get involved in root work and conjure, then to me, it would be interesting to focus more on something that has to do with this content. And how people came together. It doesn't, I'm not trying to pretend, anyone who's read the book knows that there's a lot of pain in there. I don't whitewash anything, like if anything, you know, I'm claiming a lot of stuff for that other white authors have it. So it's not a pretty book, but at least it gives people an idea.
It's honest.
Yeah, and it gives people an idea, okay, so that's where it comes from. And then ultimately, I think, too, for many neo-pagans who want to get involved in these traditions, I think they read a couple books they still don't understand. To me now, maybe if they read that, they're like, oh, I get it. I get what hoodoo's about now. It's connected to the slave revolts and survival. Oh, and that way now if they go and want to learn with somebody, then they come context. Already a little bit, you know, understood. Like, I get this now, because a lot of people don't. I think they think hoodoo and conjure was like, well, I know this is the case because I've read and I've seen authors say a white person, African American, and Native sitting around a table and said, okay, you want to create a cool tradition? We're all equal. And it's going to be part this, part that. Yeah, and people believe this. So it's not the case. It's not how it was. This was all the African Americans trying to create their survive, keep things alive, and survive through horrible ordeals. So then it becomes something commercial by the World War II era. And that's what I think a lot of people are more familiar with, without really knowing, well, where did it come from?
What was its purpose when it was created?
And two, like, you know, there's a few colleagues of mine that I don't really know them that aren't crazy about this book because, again, like I said earlier, focusing on the North. And not this toeing the company line, which a lot of people do, that Southern root work. Conjure. Everything down there is mystical and magical, and everything up here, we don't have family values, or we don't have magic. It's like, no.
We're just kind of a void.
Spiritualism was born up here. Like, the actual cross-pollination that I noticed a lot of people never really picked up on happened in the North. And these areas we live in is where actually a lot of, you know, if hundreds of thousands of people fled the South to come to the North.
And I think
they probably brought it with them. And I think there's just as much of it up here as there is down there. But hey, you know, that's for me.
You know, I wonder how much different my experience with John Brown would be if I had been born 90 miles south. Right. So if I had been born in Richmond, Virginia, rather than Washington, D.C., how big of a difference would my John Brown experience be? You know,
how would your instruction have changed as a child?
You considered him a terrorist instead of a folk hero.
Well, and I have a uncle, great uncle, who was Stonewall Jackson's physician, very big in the Confederacy. I've never considered myself on that.
Many people do.
Yes. So it's just interesting to see or visualize those differences between how people can think about, you know, well, it was just the South, or well, it was just the North, or
and there's an extent to which it's artificial to separate the country in that way, anyway. Those lines weren't drawn up.
We do have a Mason-Dixon line.
But those lines weren't drawn up as battle lines until the Civil War, and then it was. I mean, it really did tear families apart. Because everyone, like, it wasn't like there was this bifurcated country to start with, where the South was...
It tore a city apart.
Really
so D.C. used to include Alexandria, Virginia, And when D.C. said, well, we're outlawing the slave trade, Alexandria, which is a port city, said,
you can't do that to us.
Nope, we're going to be a part of Virginia, and screw you guys, because now we can still do the slave trade.
Yeah.
So, it really did. It tore, whole cities apart, families apart, everything. It was amazing.
It was all intermixed, and then the Civil War happened.
Right.
And now we're still dealing with the fallout.
Right.
Exactly, yeah.
And as I said, this is a very honest book, and it deals with the fact that, for instance, Harriet was kind of upset with President Lincoln that he was not abolishing slavery soon enough, but she participated in the war effort, the Civil War. I believe you said she was a nurse.
Yeah. She read that rate, the famous Command Leader.
Yeah.
Legend.
Again, going back to the book, it is so eye-opening. It is so honest. And I think it is necessary, especially for people of my generation all the way down to younger generations, to remember Harriet Tubman because of the times that we're going through right now. There's so much strife in our country right now. And people came together for this cause of abolition and freedom. And I think we need to remember that we can do that again.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, and the Southern Law Poverty Center, which is a big think tank type thing, just put out a report that last year hate groups in the United States grew by 400.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So
listen, y'all, you need to get Conjuring Harriet, Mama Moses Tubman, and the spirits of the Underground Railroad. We all need to conjure these spirits so that we can start working together for unity and freedom from this hideous hatred that is growing in our country.
And if you watched
if that's an appropriate response.
It's funny. When you guys were saying earlier, it makes me think. We were talking about the Civil War. So, the Civil War is obviously fought for many reasons, and slavery being a big part of it. But it's amazing how most of the people that died in the Civil War, they were still, maybe they didn't agree 100% with everything, but it's just what it is. The 1% that did own slaves drew all those people. They are now. Look at the country now being separated, pitted against each other by who? Rich people on one side and the other. And who's all paying the price? All of us. Again, we're seeing families, friends torn apart in political situations and political allegiances. And it wouldn't have been that different in the Civil War.
Right.
People have whatever reasons they feel loyal. It's complicated, but, every single person that died on either side of the Civil War, they were fighting for richer people. They had no choice,
Right.
They were forced into that war. So today seems very much the same kind of weird way. There's lines being drawn and, factions and people that should be allies fighting amongst each other or, you don't really disagree that much. What is it that's driving this wedge between somebody that just can't accept certain things? And, it's just, who's the only ones benefiting? Uber rich.
Exactly.
Uber rich and uber powerful.
And I love the ritual stuff in there, though, as anybody who listens to our podcast knows, I'm not huge into ritual.
With ritual and with Christianity.
But maybe this would be a place to start.
Right. Well, and I love the fact that you break everything down. I see a lot of rituals that say, well, you need this, and this, and they never explain what this, and this are. I'm fairly new to paganism. I've only been out of Christianity 3 years.
Maybe.
And I've only been in paganism about a year or a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm fairly new to it. They're not. But so I was the latecomer in the family. But I love the fact that you break everything down, all the tools that you need to do the ritual beforehand so that I know what the hell I'm actually doing. Because a lot of times they'll tell you need this tool, but then they don't explain what the F the tool is.
Or how you're going to use it.
Or how you're going to use it or anything like that because they just assume you know. And
I love the breakdown of the sigil, of the UGR sigil.
Right,
the Cairn and the cross.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it'll be a hard thing for me to put a cross in something, but that's just something I personally have to get over.
A long time. Like I said, that's
right.
A long time to adopt and realize what the cross meant, and it does take some time. Especially when you spend a bunch of years, which, and then all of a sudden, what do you mean I have to?
What do you mean I got to read the Psalms?
I'll be honest. I was thinking. I really think I want to have an altar. A space for Harriet Tubman and to work with her. But then I read, you want to put a little cross on there, and I was like, do I have to?
See, I don't have this problem as much because I left Christianity when I was 11, so I don't have, trauma about it. I don't have any, lingering anxieties about
right.
hell.
You've not been a Christian longer than you were a Christian.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been alive longer than I was a Christian.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's I can read the scripture that's in this book, the Conjurings, and I can just see them as beautiful and not have this lingering pain about them.
Whereas I can look at the Psalms and the verses. That's no problem. It's that symbol of the cross that I'm like a cat. My fur goes up and my hackles are raised.
Conjure and root work and voodoo in general, when I got exposed to it, which again, that's very different from African Ethos, which has no Christianity of any kind. So that's a completely separate thing. Mm-hmm. But over here for these traditions, I found working with the minimal parts that you have to have Christianity and root work conjure, it kind of almost helped to heal my what we were all just saying, that the comfortability. When you actually found a way that it crossed over, to me, that's when I sort of diffused a lot of that stuff. I was like, okay. And I just sort of took away some of the veneer of the certain things, and then I was able to start to be, because I'll sometimes go attend services in the two denominations where the Baptist Church, the Freedom Seekers built, but the BME one. And, I go in there. And obviously, I know I probably should be there, but I'm going out of respect because of who built those churches and who's in it, and I'm part of that community. Like, as a white person, but there's a few of them. I'm part of that community, and they're friends, and so I support them, and they support me once in a while for various things. We're friends, and so. But sitting in there sometimes, I'm able to appreciate certain parts of their services. I can see what's going on here, especially the Baptist ones. There's a bit more hand clapping, a bit more bring down some Holy Spirit. The Methodists, not so much. And in fact, he's not the preacher at that church anymore. But when he found out, some of the people in that denomination know me very well. Others, I'm just that white guy who's an enthusiast of the underground world, where they just keep it quiet. There's various church politics is bad enough. Black church politics, when you're a white witch doctor involved in it, is even more bizarre. And so
BME is Black Methodist Episcopal?
British Methodist Episcopal.
British, okay.
But I just mean because I attend their functions and, so I see all the politics, church politics, and I never belonged to a church, so I always heard about church politics, but when you see it in motion, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But there was a preacher there who was no longer there. And when he found out who I was and what I was doing, he freaked out. I had things that I had contributed to the church removed from the church, put into another building. He's like, because this guy's a cursor. And one day I went to there, they were having some troubles with some people digging up bodies in the back when the city was, breaking some laws. And he literally did a sermon looking right at me about the devil amongst us. Oh my God. And so I actually, when he was saying that, he's a big older black guy, when he was saying that, a couple of times I looked around and I felt like Rodney Dangerfield. Like, just like, whoa! All I can think of is, why my friends can see this right now, because I wasn't upset about it. I was just more like amused and stunned and thinking, I wish people could see this right now. Who gets to say this is happening? He looked right at me, and afterwards a couple of the people apologized. Like, he's such a blowhard, don't worry about it. I walked up right after, I was like, Reverend Peters, that was a great sermon. I said, gave me lots to think about, and he goes, but he's no longer there, thank goodness. So,
oh my goodness.
I could definitely tell you a lot about church politics. I used to be on staff at one.
Let's not go.
So, yeah. We just did a video this morning that we posted to our Facebook group and also to Convocation, where we gave the book 5 stars. So we absolutely loved it. Yeah, strongly endorsed it. We'll do that on Amazon as well.
Yeah,
and we'll do a blog post and all that kind of stuff.
Before we move on, I did just want to say one of my favorite parts of this book was conjuring the nameless freedom seekers.
Yes.
That I found that really compelling. The lovers, I cried reading the story of the lovers. I thought that was really valuable and powerful because a lot of us don't know. So I do a lot of ancestor work with my own ancestors, and I don't know all their names.
Right.
But I know they're sitting at the shrine waiting to be fed and loved and remembered and honored, and I have a connection to them even if I don't know their names and faces. And so I found that part of this book, conjuring the freedom seekers who were forgotten, maybe even more meaningful than conjuring the well-known names.
Right. I appreciate you noticing that, because that is the idea of working in this particular tradition. It's so that gives us something to do to heal the land and to think about the people that don't get remembered. And that's a blessing. Right? When we do that kind of compassionate work, it becomes infectious. And so when we go to our Wiccan temple, we go to our whatever other type of tradition, it just invokes a little bit of a compassion and a different idea. And then again, that's the whole idea. If we have white people helping remember fallen black heroes who will never know their names. Right. In fact, if you notice some of the pictures in there that says nameless, those are all from a family in St. Catherine's that I know, the Bell family. And they found them all in the attic. Wow. Something out of a movie. They're all tintypes. people that were experts tried to find out who they were. When the old man didn't even know why his grandfather was saving him. When he passed away, he found it afterwards. So they're all in university now, but no one will ever know who they are. And those pictures were taken in St. Catharines, right across the road from the church. There was an old photography studio a white man had back in the 1800s, and with certain freedom seekers, he'd invite them over and put some nice suits on them and took portraits of them. No one even knows how to get a hold of any family members of that photography studio, because some of them actually have the print. I just chose the ones that didn't have the name of it. Experts have tried. No one will ever know who those people are, where they're buried. And so one of the family members was like, hey, feel free to use the pictures in there.
Yeah.
Because it would be nice to see them remembered in a way and put in a book, because they've never been published before. So,
well, I do love the pictures, because I think for me, it gives me something to visualize when I'm doing it. So I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah.
Now, would it be appropriate to add like a space for the unknown to your own ancestor altar, or just give them a separate space?
I usually put them separately, because my ancestor, so I was born in Scotland, so my little ancestral corner, which has swords and tartans and shields, that's just all them. But the rest of my house is essentially one giant shrine. But for most people, if you're going to work with any of the conjurers, you can put them all in one area. So, and just give them the reverence and veneration at their own time.
Create an underground railroad.
Yep.
The majority of our home is altar and shrine now.
At this point.
So,
of course, as we found out through you doing Ancestry.com, I do have some ancestry, I think through my great-grandmother. Her mother was black, we believe. And so...
She was white passing.
Yeah, she was white passing. Right. For me, I feel like that's even more of a compelling reason to include a shrine to the unknown.
Most multi-generational Americans have.
Somewhere.
And maybe by terrible means, but it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And whereas in Canada, because there was no country. Canada really was only one little area, and it didn't really grow until Lincoln was going to invade after the Civil War. He's like, we're going to go and take that too, part of the manifest destiny. So Canada was like, we better build a railroad and connect this country. And then that's what Britain said, good luck, because we fought the Americans enough, we're out. But all the Canadians, they're multi-generational Canadians. They all have Native American blood. You go back to everyone.
Right.
Because that's who people married in Canada, when you lived in these remote areas. So multi-generational North Americans, then they're white supremacists. It's like,
it's like, dudes,
right.
You have something in
go
your
get you
bloodline.
23 and
you
have something in you that is not what you think you are.
Exactly.
And
you are not pure Aryan.
It's unique. Ancestor work, it sounds like you guys are actually right on the same wavelength. It's amazing, and these DNA tests to me has been fascinating when I do readings for people, because it proves what we've thought or known in the cult for generations of the sanctity and the importance of what's in the blood. So when we have our ancestral pool, like an ethereal pool, that all of our lineages, when we work with it and pray with it and connect with it, it makes it cleaner, more pure. And when that transforms, that's the whole thing. It eventually transforms actual blood within us, because that is the portal, is the blood within us. And so when we work with our ancestors, it actually makes us healthier. And so that's what's so unique. That, and therefore odd that when people, I'm a white supremacist, and it's like, well, did you have something in your line that,
that you're not honoring?
Yeah, even if you were like, someone in your family might have been from Czechoslovakia that might have part Asian, there's no such thing as white supremacy. It's crazy.
Exactly.
But
there's no such thing as whiteness, really.
Yeah.
It's a constructed concept.
Yeah.
That's right. It's very strange. Even in where Britain, the Scottish people are a different genetic class as the Welsh and then the English. The only thing the Welsh and the Scottish get agreed with is they hate the English, because they were all from another, the Normans that came there. So even tiny islands of white people have different genetic backgrounds, and they literally make sure that you understand the difference. And so, it's so weird when people
one of the things I learned as a child growing up at family reunions was I wasn't allowed to say that I was Scandinavian. I had to say I was Norwegian and Danish.
There you go.
So that you could specify.
That's right.
They came from those two places.
That's right.
I'm aware of that one.
So the other thing we want to cover is the
controversy.
Yeah, the whole
stupid controversy that's going on that we don't understand.
Honest, I do not understand that at all.
I've read the drama. And having read the book, I can reliably say the people causing the drama didn't read the book.
Yeah.
Well, nobody was able to read the book when the drama started. It's amazing.
Can you tell us, maybe, do you know what the roots of the problem are?
It's like twofold. One part of the reality of what PantheaCon was all about. I was invited to it. I presented all of the workshops I was going to do. They were all accepted. And it ended up on the program, the pre-program and then the actual public program. A lot of people were really excited because I'd never been out there. The Dragon Ritual Drummers had never been out there. We'd been invited to California many times. And so a lot of people knew, hey, that's one of the guys from Dragon. I know a lot of folks. So they were like, oh, cool. And a lot of people had this idea, wow, PantheaCon must be loosening the reins of it. This doesn't seem like something they would have. And I thought the same thing. I didn't really want to go to it. I wanted to come to this one originally anyway. And so I was like, oh, they're never going to accept this stuff I'm doing. Like, the rituals I presented, I was like, no way. And then when they kept sending it back, approved. Wow, okay, well, maybe I was wrong about this event. So one part of it is that there were some folks there, another community of people, white, that conjure, but they have a narrative of the way they present something, and my book challenges a lot of their southern root work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gotcha, okay.
Fantasy world, for lack of a better word. But then on the other end as well, and so I already had heard before all the trouble started that there was some murmurs like, we don't want that guy to come here. But then ultimately, it did start from one woman of color who got rejected. This is all known now. She didn't get all her classes rejected, but one of them she wanted to do was rejected. And she's a gay black woman. When they looked at the stuff, I was just the ultimate perfect, straight white target. This is not, I don't care. I'm not saying this to sound like a victim, but this has been debated, it's been discussed, and they've admitted it. It is what it is. So shit happens. Then ultimately the white, we're talking about 2 women out of 3,000 people that had a problem with me, other than some secret enclave of folks who were like, so they were happy with this. Then all the white social justice warrior wannabe allies jumped on it. And so them calling me a cultural appropriator lasted for about a day. And then they abandoned all. What shocked me was it couldn't even be about that debate. And I was ready for that debate because a lot of people of color, or colleagues and friends of mine, were like, okay, maybe this is the debate.
This is an ongoing discussion that we're having.
It didn't last more than a day till, there's obviously a playbook from social justice radicals. I was a homophobe. Members of the Dragon Ritual Drummers are gay. My closest friends are gay. I've been in the pagan community. My closest brothers and sisters are gay and lesbian. They tried to say I was a homophobe. This is outrageous. Then I was a transphobe. Well, for a straight white guy, let me tell you, I have a lot of trans friends, and I'm like, again, we're in the pagan community. Is there any other subculture that has such a high representation of trans? Probably not.
Yeah.
The pagan community is trying to catch up to it because we have so many in our community. So that's not true. It's just outrageous. Then I was a white supremacist. I was a racist,
which is unfathomable if you read this book.
Yeah,
I have been. My personal life would shut that down right quick because I'm not very much of a. I get it. Where I live, I've been in relationships with women of color. I've lived with them. It's not the only people I've ever been with, but my whole circle of friends and people are people of color. And to be called, they helped me write this book, some of them. I had people helping me with this, giving me information, historians that can't get their stuff. So I'm a racist too? It just was outrageous. And so, I'll be honest, I've made some judgments on people that I've heard rumors about. And in this last few months, I've 180 and started to rethink that because there are now thousands of people out there through the internet drama that believe that I am a white supremacist, homophobe, appropriating transphobe who,
racist,
yeah. That I'm just trying to capitalize on this and so that's
and you had death threats.
Death threats, yeah.
Just violence, yeah.
It's gone away now.
Well, that's good.
I was threatened at this event.
Really?
No.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the case because at PantheaCon, because after a while when they realized they weren't going to, affect me, they turned on Orion Foxwood, who was a great friend of mine, and he wrote a thing on Facebook, sort of trying to say, diversity. There's a demon that's affecting our, diversity, and it took a couple of these folks that were really wanting to make this a big deal 2 weeks to finally go, hey, let's try to say that was a curse against people of color, and that became a big deal. And so he was also threatened, and that there was going to be disruption of his workshops at PantheaCon, and so on and so forth. So not one thing happened. Not one of these people that made all that noise, that made all this drama, that literally tried to cause racial strife in our communities. And I mean, to me, that's the most deplorable thing you could do, especially to try to capitalize on yourself, to cause, in this day and age, amongst our unique communities. Pagan community, for all its faults, people can find lots of them. This is the most progressive, equality championing. And I knew that in the 90s when I got involved in it. Oh, wow, this is really cool. Gay, white, black.
The pagan community tries really hard to be inclusive.
It is, and I mean, good luck finding another community where you can go to events like this, outdoors, indoors, where we are all kind of on an equal plane. I think it's unique. And sort of try to drive the wedge, and I think it's disgusting. So they didn't even show up. They couldn't even debate him. They couldn't even come up and say, "Hey,
let's
kind of
have this conversation.
Pretty awkward time over there on Facebook, huh? And let's agree to disagree." And then you could turn around and lie and twist about that. But they didn't even have the courage to do that. So I'm not feeling too bad where some rumors were originally. To show you how dirty it was, there was some of these people said, "Yeah, Detroit's a dangerous city. People get shot there all the time."
Oh my!
And I had to engage back and said, "Yeah, I know, because I know some people here in the city, and they're actually going to be hanging around and watching me. So no one's getting out. I have to say, no one's getting out of the hotel lobby alive if they try it. So good luck." So, unfortunately, I had to play this game a little bit.
Right.
So the threats were crazy, and they're just, I don't know. This is the social justice warrior enclave of the neo-pagan community, which kind of does come mostly from West Coast. Is, to me, it lacks magic. If they had magic, they wouldn't be trying to prey upon themselves.
Right.
It's makes no sense.
It's called virtue signaling.
Yes.
And it's where you try to, you're not actually dedicated to the cause, but you publicly champion the cause to increase your own cultural cachet within your little enclave. And it is a curse upon our society.
Yes.
It's amazing. And, I mean, I'm not exactly, an anarchist by any stretch, but I believe in a lot of things that probably would fall under fairly extremely left-wing things. In a way, I just believe the environment should be protected. I believe that. I come from a country with social health care. I know it can happen. Yeah, you got to pay a few extra dollars on booze and beer, whatever. Now you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to the doctor.
Exactly.
Right.
I believe in gay rights.
I wish we had your health care system.
Racial equality. Of course, I believe in this. So, but we don't have a lot of guns in Canada, but you'd be hard-pressed to find someone in Canada who wouldn't like to have a gun to be able to protect them. So I can buy a gun. So I just got to get a license, and I can only have a rifle. But we don't have a law in Canada where we can defend our home, so it sort of takes away all that. But a lot of people in Canada would like that, right? So, where do I sit politically? I don't know, but I know that I have championed and fought for a lot of people, especially women that have been abused by people in the pagan community. And for me to be made for at least 2 or 3 months public enemy number one of everything crazy. Wrong is shocking. It doesn't bother me, but it is ironic. And like I said, I've really analyzed. I had enemies, people that are literally enemies of mine who don't get a lot messaging me through that saying, "Holy crap, this is crazy, buddy." Like, well, I'm on your side on this one,
we don't actually agree, but
I sent them to a few people, like, "Look who sent me a message." Why? Well, they're white. They're in voodoo or hoodoo, and I think a lot of people were starting to see the writing on the wall of what they were trying to do. They're like, "Well, where's this going?" Because if this guy who's initiated, whatever, and hasn't even been, he's not even selling anything that's got to do with all the other traditions, then what's next? Us and
right.
A lot of people. That was there.
Yeah, I've paid attention. I've seen all this controversy because we're friends on Facebook, and so I've seen all of this stuff going on. And I'm friends with Teddy on Facebook as well, and so just seeing all of it just pile up, it was just stupid.
That it's some of these people are just trolls trying to cause problems.
Oh,
I don't believe that. I originally I was like, probably not, but actually, some pagan intellectuals, some of the older folks that have degrees and have written some other books, I've seen them now because of the situation, saying they believe that there's an element of that is, they're not really magical at all. It's just an element of people that are demonstrators, radicals, and they see the pagan community as an easy one to sort of infiltrate and use as their voice banner behind them. And so I think it's up to us now, and I really believe that. Like, I never thought I'd have to say that, but it seems like a lot of people we have to reject these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the pagan community's been doing pretty good at equality, inclusivity, and catching up to everything, like the transsexual movement right now. People got to catch up to it. But if there's any other subculture that has been ahead of the bar in the pagan community, good luck. You show me one. Mm-hmm. And if they turn on people in our own community and say you're transphobe just because you don't agree with certain things, which is why they chucked out Max Dashy from Pagan, was because she's a woman that believes that in certain healing circles, biological women only should be in there because some of these women have been raped or abused by men, and so there has to be a line at some point. And by saying that, you're transphobe. Mm. So do actual trans people believe that? I know plenty that don't disagree with that, but the ones that are loudest say transphobe, and it just becomes this, like they did to me. They'll flame everything at you. I hope something sticks.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't think there's any honor in that.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they should, have the voice they do. And I think what has happened because of this whole debacle of Convocation, a lot of people begged me, hey, just quit engaging them. I was like, no, I think I'm going to have to once in a while. It felt liberating. I'm usually very well behaved on Facebook. So a few times I was able to go into a thread and be like, you know what? Screw this. And I just go to hell, you whatever. And I just type it in there and be like, you don't know what, I was like, well, that kind of felt good. Might be embarrassed, feel a little dirty, but hey, so it was good to sort of, I think, just stop that. They're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Convocation, they're suffering. Their past weekend was a dismal disaster. It's good. Well, whatever, I'm not going to say it's too bad, but you get what you in magic world.
Yeah.
Magic things happen when you do
right,
something
yeah.
dumb.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good point. That's a good
I'm not
point.
saying I believe in karma, but magic has a way of
Coming around.
Coming
Yeah,
around.
that's true. Equalizing.
So we at 3-Pack would say this is a 5-star book,
Absolutely.
Yes.
and you need to go onto Amazon or your local pagan store right now and buy Conjuring Harriet Mama Moses Tubman and the Spirits of the Underground Railroad at your earliest convenience, or just get offline right now and go buy it.
That's right. And if you have a chance to go somewhere to hear Witchdoctor Utu speak, to teach a class, to hear Dragon Ritual drummers play, because they're amazing.
Yeah. Do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Absolutely.
Take the
And
Yeah.
this whole debacle is just stupid. It's unfounded. And, fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I forgot. We can't swear? All right.
Oh, yeah. We're an explicit podcast, so.
Sorry, we should have made that clear early on.
So much fucking better.
No, we had to mark our podcast explicit because iTunes told us they would take it away.
I'm the worst offender here, so.
No, that's not true.
No, it's me.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's me in the supermarket cursing up a storm and then realizing there's a small child behind me. Sorry, parent.
well, thank you very much for being here, Witchdoctor
my
Utu.
pleasure,
We
guys.
absolutely loved having you. The reading this morning was correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was engaging.
Yeah, I did a divination this morning to see how the interview would go and got fast and enthusiastic. So
Yep,
Right on.
and we
No,
hit
I
that.
appreciate it very much, guys.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you
It was
so
an
much.
absolute
Thank
blast
you.
having you.
we are here out of schedule
Yep.
to announce the winner of the contest we started last week.
Yeah.
With the last episode, we announced that we had an extra copy of Witchdoctor Utu's book, Conjuring Harriet
Tubman.
Mama Moses Tubman and the Spirits of the Underground Railroad. So we asked y'all to do a little bit of research, find out what Harriet Tubman's birth name was, because it was not Harriet or Tubman,
Nope.
Nope.
and to send in your entries for a chance to win that book. And you all sent in your responses.
And should we say for
Yeah,
the rest,
well,
for those who did not,
For those of
send
you
in a
who didn't
response,
do your research,
naughty naughties,
Araminta Ross was her
was
her
her
birth
birth name.
name. Yep.
And
she was called Minty.
Yeah, she was called Minty by her peers.
Yep. And so the winner is Heather Schmidt-Gonzalez.
Congratulations, Heather!
Yeah.
You are the lucky recipient of a wonderful book.
Yeah, we really enjoyed the book. We gave it 5 stars, as we said in the
Yeah,
interview you just
absolutely.
listened to.
Yep.
Yeah, so we strongly recommend this book, and we hope you enjoy it just as much as we did.
Absolutely, because not only is it a great history book, but it also is practical.
Yeah.
So,
All right. That's it for us.
Yeah,
right?
that's
That's
it.
it.
That's
That's
it for this week, because this
Yeah.
is not a normal recording. So,
no, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
If you did, send us a message on Facebook or Discord. All right. So that's it.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
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 Am I going to stop or are you going to quit saying bye?
Bye.
I like how she manages to do it the same way each time.
Let me try it again.
Bye.
Worked.
You've been listening to Three Pagans and a Cat. Find out more information at www.threepagansandacat.com.